Good morning to you all, and welcome to today's webinar for the GSK Transforming the Future of Self-Care Challenge, brought to you by 9 Sigma. My name is Jonathan Yakasha from 9 Sigma, and I will be your host and moderator today. Please note that this webinar is being recorded. The recording and transcription will be made available on the GSK Challenge page after the webinar. Let's review our agenda for today. After I introduce our speakers, they'll discuss the project in greater depth. Then we'll take some time addressing your questions during a live Q&A session, followed by a brief summary of project information, including how to request additional information or assistance. As we proceed through today's presentation, please feel free to ask your questions at any time. We'll keep track of your questions and respond to them during the Q&A portion of today's webinar. As there are multiple topics for this particular challenge, we would ask that you indicate which topic your question relates to. That way we can get you the best information possible. If you need any information outside of today's webinar, please feel free to contact the 9 Sigma Provider Help Desk at phd@9sigma.com. If you didn't get that email address, don't worry, I'll bring it up again later during today's presentation. At this time, I'd like to introduce our speakers today. First, from GSK Consumer Health, we're joined by Ian Marks, VP of R&D Innovation, and Robert Sarrazin, VP of External Innovation and Direct Investments. From 9 Sigma, we're joined by Kevin Andrews, PhD, Senior Program Manager. Gentlemen, thank you all for joining us this morning. Look forward to an interesting session. We'll begin with Robert Sarrazin from GSK Consumer Health. Robert, could you please give our attendees an overview of GSK?
Great, thank you. My name is Rob Sarrazin. I'm the VP of External Innovation and Direct Investments for GSK Consumer Health Division. And my team is responsible for sourcing the global innovation ideas across the world with the objective of introducing those best ideas to the categories and to the emerging science teams. So over the last few years, GSK has really focused its effort to try to work closer with external collaborators and incubators and crowdsourcing networks. So I think we're in a great position to start to think about how we can bring some of those ideas and collaborate with some of our internal networks. For GSK itself, now we do think we're uniquely positioned to collaborate with innovators. You know, we're a science-led organization. We're a global company with a very special purpose. You know, our mission is to bring quality healthcare products and services to as many people as possible. And our values, which we think really set us apart, you know, with really focused on patients, on transparency, respect, integrity, courage, accountability, development, teamwork, collectively, we think are going to set us apart and allow us really to be the most innovative, best performing, and trusted company in the healthcare space. And all of those together forms our 3 pillars under the innovation, performance, and trust. And we think collectively those are really what are going to set us apart going forward. Now, GSK itself, just to give a quick summary, you know, we do work across the spectrum of healthcare. You know, we have 3 primary business units, starting with our largest under the pharmaceuticals. And we have leading positions in both respiratory and HIV, but also oncology and other developing areas. And that represents approximately 57% of our sales. We do also have some of the most innovative vaccine products with our recent introduction of Singridge. And we have the broadest portfolio of leading positions in meningitis and other areas. And then the consumer division, which Ian and I are part of, and we are category leaders in respiratory, pain, relief, and oral health, representing 26% of our sales. And collectively, we do work very closely together, the 3 business units we call 3+1, to deliver both, as I mentioned, the innovation, performance, and trust platform. Now, specifically with regards to consumer healthcare footprint, we're approximately about 7 billion in sales, pounds in net sales. And as I mentioned, we have leading positions in several different areas, including pain relief, where we are #1 in 2 of our product brands, where we actually have the 2 of the largest global brands out of 4 global brands in the world, with Panadol and Voltaren. We are #1 in respiratory when it comes to smoking cessation with Nicotel and Theraflu. Within the gastrointestinal department, we do have two pretty strong brands, Eno and Tums, a great presence internationally in emerging markets and developing countries. And then within the fast-moving group, consumer group, we are the #1 brand in specialist oral health with Sensodyne, and also a very strong presence with Poligrip. With nutrition, we have the #1 brand in India with Horlicks, which is a brand that's been around for over 100 years, and Boost. And then finally, within the skin area, we are the #3 skin health brand with Physiogel and Abreva. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ian.
We can go to the next slide. So good morning, everyone. This is Ian Marks, and again, I'm the VP Global Head of Innovation, and very excited to have everyone here today. So just to begin with, a little more than 3 years ago, my innovation leadership team, we came together and we developed this bold vision to transform the future of self-care. And at that time, it took us a while to understand what exactly that vision means. And now what we're trying to do is we really want to give consumers the tools to not only to diagnose, to treat, but also to maintain their health. And this is really how do we enable them to be more accountable and taking more ownership for their overall health. So as everyone knows, currently consumers must rely on their physicians to diagnose and to prescribe, even for the most common ailments. And what we want to do is we want to start leveraging things like digital, data, and artificial intelligence to enable consumers to track their health, to track their symptoms, and to make better decisions on their treatment options. Now you see there, our goal is really to be the leader in this space by 2025. And we're currently actively building up our capabilities in digital and diagnostics and RX to OTC switch. But a key part of this strategy is really for us to pursue partnerships with academia, with startups, established companies, and doing things like we're doing today, which is reaching out to entrepreneurs to see where we can really tap into all the great work and innovation that's happening out there. We can go to the next slide. So what does the future of self-care look like? So this vision of transforming the future of self-care, the exciting part, it's really starting to become a reality. GSK has opportunities that we're working on in digital and artificial intelligence. We have things that we're working on in diagnostics. We're looking at new platform technologies. And it's all these different areas that are all coming together that's enabling this more personalized consumer health solutions. If we look at digital, the three focus areas, digital and artificial intelligence, we really are looking for these opportunities that we can leverage consumer data to improve treatment outcomes, to identify new product solution opportunities. These are the predictive tools, the biometrics, the wearables. From a diagnostics perspective, we want to empower the consumers and give them the ability to self-diagnose, something that's really not done very routinely. You really need to you count on your doctor to provide you with the diagnostic capabilities. And for the platform technologies, we're looking for these breakthrough opportunities, whether it's new active ingredients or new delivery technologies. And like I said, you take all these different components together, and that's going to enable this future of self-care, this personalized consumer health solutions. So with that, we can go to the next slide.
Great, thank you, Robert and Ian. At this time, I'll turn it over to Kevin Andrews from 9 Sigma. Kevin, could you tell our attendees a bit more about the goals, the topics, and other key facts about this challenge?
Yes, thank you. So the goals of the challenge are to enable consumers to do more, feel better, and live longer. GSK wishes to establish partnerships with entrepreneurs who want to support this mission. And they seek technologies in 3 focus areas that align with GSK's over-the-counter or consumer non-prescription healthcare products. Next slide. So the 3 topics that are part of this challenge are digital health technologies, which seeks novel digital health technologies that enable self-care. At-home diagnostics, seeking effective diagnostic technologies to enable consumer self-care. and Formulation Technologies, seeking novel formulation technologies to augment the performance of over-the-counter or consumer non-prescription healthcare products. For each of these topics, there are key attributes. So in this slide for digital health, those key attributes are to enable the consumer to practice self-care and utilize the over-the-counter consumer products, to be compatible with GSK's current OTC and consumer product line, and to be able to be connected to devices with the ability to transmit data as per permissions granted by the user and following all relevant privacy regulations. For the at-home diagnostics topic, the key attributes are to enable consumers to practice self-care and to better utilize GSK over-the-counter and consumer products. That the technology approach be non-invasive, that it be compatible with digital or connected components, and that preferably it be low cost. Finally, for the Formulation Technologies topic, the key attributes are to enable reformulation of existing healthcare products to offer one or more of the following: quicker onset of symptom relief, extended duration of symptom relief, more convenient regimen for use, or an enhanced user experience. This technology should be compatible with one or more existing consumer healthcare products and should use ingredients that are approved for use in food and drugs. So for all of the topics in the challenge, there are key success criteria that GSK will use to judge the submission. These are: how thorough and concise is the description of the problem, solution approach, and business model; the effectiveness of the approach to address the topic; the extent to which the approach addresses a consumer need; creativity and originality. GSK is looking for more than a Me Too offering. They would like clear differentiation to other products already on the market. Technology maturity. A solution that's in a later stage of maturity will receive a better score. Ease of implementation, clear and tractable path to manufacturability or supply and deployment to the market. A potential to transfer the solution to other scenarios, and the likelihood that the solution is economical at the consumer product price point. Your solutions should meet these following minimum requirements. You have to already be working on your approach, preferably that your technology readiness is at the prototype phase, proof of concept stage, or later. Your approach must have a clear business model and value proposition, and you should have protected your intellectual property, either by patent or as proprietary information. What is it? What's the award? There is a maximum of $50,000 US available for cash prizes. The competition will award up to 5 $10,000 prizes to winners across all 3 topics. GSK may also explore funding or other support of the entry for further development and or commercialization. As far as the timeline for this challenge, we launched on October 22nd. We are here today on November 27th conducting the webinar. The deadline for submission is January 31st, 2019 at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And winner announcement will occur in March of 2019.
Great, thank you for that, Kevin. We're going to now proceed to our frequently asked questions. These are questions that are generally asked about Nine Sigma projects or are questions that have already been asked to Nine Sigma. I will also take this opportunity to remind our attendees that if they have questions about this challenge, please feel free to submit your questions at any time via the Q&A chat box. Quick reminder, since there are 3 topics for this challenge, please indicate the topic of interest for your question so that we can get you the best information possible. With that in mind, we'll move on to the FAQs. Our very first question, can the opportunity that I submit go across multiple of the challenge areas? For example, can a diagnostic idea have a digital component? I think this question probably best answered by the GSK team.
Yeah, Rob, so I'll take this one. So absolutely. Actually, we would actually expect that it would potentially go across one, two, or maybe even all three of the challenges, especially when you think about how most opportunities are going to probably have a digital data component to it. So yes, you can have a diagnostic that is connected and has a digital data. You could have a new platform technology, again, that has a digital data component. So yes, the answer is absolutely. But it doesn't need to, I should also mention.
Great, thank you for that. Our next question. Are you looking for opportunities only across the current GSK categories of pain relief, oral health, respiratory health, digestive health, and skin health? If not, what other categories can we consider?
Yeah, so Rob, let me just take this one as well. So I think as a focus, we're definitely looking for opportunities that exist within our existing categories. That's the pain relief, oral health, respiratory health, and digestive and skin health. But that does not mean that we would not consider new exciting opportunities outside that space. So I would say we're interested in both. The ones that outside will potentially have to be category builders. So these are really exciting new opportunities that we can build a whole category around. But we're open to all innovations. The one thing that we need to be focused on are innovations that have a consumer focus to it. So we wouldn't be interested in opportunities that are for the RX space or vaccines, for example.
Okay. Question 3, what types of partnerships is GSK open to? For example, strategic partnerships, licensing deals, supply partnerships, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so let me take that one. I mean, the reality is that we are open to all sorts of potential transactional details. In fact, we've had experience in each of the different examples that were highlighted. I would probably correlate it more towards the stage at which the technology is in. So, for example, if you're in the earlier stage, there may be some various milestones that need to be achieved before we can create some clarity. I think we've created, at least with my team, I've created a lot of flexibility in really being able to go after the science and the idea. And ultimately, that's the primary objective, is to find the absolute best science in the world, the best ideas, and we can collectively structure things around that. So if it's a very, very early stage opportunity, we can also even think about things like direct investments and other potential early stage investments, and also create a collaboration between ourselves and the third party, so we can help that organization develop its technology with our assistance. If something it's very developed and ready to go to market, or is even already on market, we may be more towards the licensing and potentially even acquisition side of things. But we're very flexible, whether it's, and I think that's one of the advantages to working with someone like GSK, that we've had experience in each of these different subsegments, and we're happy to consider any one of those.
Great. And we have one more FAQ question. Is there any limit or obstacle when reviewing a relationship with a startup?
Yeah, so I'll take that one too. I wouldn't say, no, I mean, I wouldn't say there are any specific limits or obstacles that are set by the particular stage at which the company is. I will say that I would think about it more from a development perspective. So if we're looking at something that is very, very early stage, that doesn't necessarily, may not have a proof of concept, may not, or may go through some sort of clinical program. Clearly, the more proof that we have, the more ability we have to be able to, I guess, rationalize the opportunity. Clearly that would then get closer and closer to us to be able to create some certainty. But on the same token, we also don't want to discourage individuals that have great ideas that may be at the very early stages, and we also have frameworks to be able to deal with that. So I think the startups clearly have a certain cultural perspective. I will say one thing, and I talked about a little bit on the value side of things. Clearly, the values and expectations are at the top We will not do business with folks that are not aligned on it from a strategic and from a values perspective. And that is really focused on trying to provide, the best solutions for our customers. So I think as long as we're sort of aligned on that part of things, the rest we can figure out.
Great, thank you for that. So it's now time to open up today's session to your questions, attendees. Please feel free to submit your questions via the Q&A chat box. We'll take the rest of our time today to go through your questions and get you information directly from 9 Sigma and from GSK Consumer Health. Couple of quick notes. Number one, as I mentioned previously, there are 3 topics for this challenge. If you have a specific topic in mind for your question, please let us know the topic so that we can address it appropriately. Number 2, if we don't get to all of your questions today, don't worry. All the questions that are asked during today's session will be answered. The answers will be included in the transcript of today's broadcast. And number 3, and finally, before we move on to the questions themselves, if you think of a question outside of today's webinar, don't worry. In upcoming slides, we'll have some information about how you can obtain the information that you're after. With that in mind, we'll move to our questions. Our very first question, we're interested in working with GSK. What's the best way to go about getting connected with GSK? Kevin, I think that may be the question for you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Yeah, the answer is submit a non-confidential entry to the challenge. Tell GSK what your technology interest is and what kind of interaction you're interested in. Follow the prescription for what to include in your response, and let it be evaluated in the challenge process. That'll be the best way to start.
Okay, great.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that,
Yes.
we do have a website that we do look at religiously, and we pay attention to every submission that is made. So clearly, if there's an idea that, and we will see it. So I would encourage other individuals also to reach out on the website.
Great, thank you for that add-on. Okay, our next question, going to eligibility. So to the team from GSK and Kevin from 9 Sigma, is there any restriction on country of residence for respondents?
So,
yeah, there would. I mean, from my side, and this is Ian Marks, there would be no restriction on we've worked with really any company. We work with many companies around the world. That's one of the things that we really, I think, are quite proud of, is that ideas can come from anywhere, and we will work with any group, any company that is interested in working with us.
Great, thank you, Ian. Okay, this next question I think might be best addressed by Kevin. The question is asking what sort of information should they include with their response? Information about patents, a pitch deck, that sort of thing.
So all of that could be relevant. Keep in mind that your submission should be non-confidential. Do not reveal confidential information. If it's publicly available, so if the patent is published, sure, at least provide reference to it. Anything that you have that explains what it is great. Remember that there's a list of specific elements that your response should include that's described in each of the topic challenge statements. So make sure that your submission aligns with that list.
Okay, and kind of building on what you were just saying, Kevin, we have also a question. A respondent indicates that they have a patent, but it's not yet published. Would that be a restriction in a response?
So in principle, it's not a restriction. Just be mindful of the fact that you don't want to reveal information that is, could be deemed confidential. So temper your submission accordingly. As we indicated in the earlier in the webinar, if you have your information protected as proprietary, that's fine. And if it's a patent that's in progress, so note.
Okay. Our next question. response, or the question is from a doctor who does not own a company. Can they still apply through this challenge? Kevin, GSK?
Anyone's eligible according to the terms and conditions of the contest. I'll let the folks from GSK expand on that.
Yeah, absolutely. There are absolutely no restrictions. We do refer, and it's a good comment. We do refer to innovators as companies, but that is absolutely not the case at all. There could be individuals, doctors that have developed a very unique way. It could be potentially a patent that is owned by an individual. So no, we're not limiting anything to specifically to companies.
And we should also mention that we've had many, individuals that we've worked with in the past, and quite successfully. And so we're open to working with individuals, companies, entrepreneurs, academia. So.
Okay, great. Thank you, gentlemen, for that. Okay. Questions coming in very rapidly now, so bear with me for just a moment. Kevin, talking about your submission, depending on what you say in your submission, that may reveal unintended information. Can you talk a little bit more about how to go about formulating a response?
Yeah, so that's kind of wherein the significant challenge lies in preparing your submission. You don't want to give away the recipe of your solution. So if there's a way to talk about the technology in terms of category without necessarily talking about the specific chemistry, that could be useful. So for example, if your approach is some form of time release matrix, you're not going to tell us what the constituents are. You're going to tell us that you have a time release matrix so talk about its performance rather than its composition. Obviously you have to discuss the issue of safe ingredients, but again, you don't have to tell us in your submission what the ingredients are. That'll come out later if you're selected as a winner and GSK chooses to go forward with your with an interaction with you. Likelihood is they're going to do it under NDA, and then you can share confidential information like that. But don't do that in your initial challenge submission.
Okay. Staying with you, Kevin, for just a moment longer. Next question: can you submit more than one entry to the challenge?
Sure, absolutely. It's please indicate which topic you're submitting for, and do something in your submission to distinguish one entry from another. So, if you're going to do 2 entries, maybe label one entry 1 and the other entry 2, just to make things a little easier to keep track.
Okay. Let's see. I think our next question will be, topic 2 indicates that technologies that test for diabetes or pregnancy are not of interest. What about technologies that monitor either of those two, diabetes or pregnancy? Would that be of interest?
Yeah, so I'll take that one, Rob. So it's not that we're not interested in the area of diabetes and pregnancy. It's not a focus area for us at GSK right now. As you know, it's not one of our category areas. Actually, one of the areas that we are interested in is these chronic asymptomatic conditions, and diabetes is probably one of them that we'd be interested in. So that's more on the metabolism side, so cardiovascular metabolism. So I think for the right opportunities, we would definitely be interested in evaluating it. But I think that the hurdle for probably bringing in an opportunity is a little bit higher than the one that's for our existing categories. So pregnancy is a little bit out of scope. It's an area that I think we made a strategic choice that we weren't going to go into. But I think more on the diabetes or the cardiovascular metabolism side, we would be interested in assessing technologies.
Okay, great. Next question. We're going to go back to Kevin from 9 Sigma. What if I've got a video that I'd like to include? Can I include that in my response?
So yes, we've allowed for the possibility of a video. We do not wish to receive your video file. We wish instead to receive a link. So post your video somewhere Vimeo or YouTube private channel or some other place, and give us the link to access it and password if necessary. We do not wish to receive large video files.
Okay, great. Our next question, I think we're going to switch back to the gentleman from GSK. Topic 1 says that solutions which are focused primarily on health records, payer providers, or hospital systems are not of interest. Would that also apply to technologies that use electronic healthcare records as a source of patient data for its analytics?
Yeah, I'll take that one, Rob. So I think more and more, data is going to become really important for how we could leverage that information for, to enable consumers to make better decisions. And I think data is going to come from all sources, right? It could come from, Amazon. It can come from social listening. It can come from, working with Walgreens. So there's tons and tons of these data sources that you can tap into. So I think that more and more that things like electronic health records are going to become a really important, will have an important role in consumers' decision making, especially when you start thinking about like the RX to OTC switch area, where when you start trying to think about, well, is a consumer right for a specific medicine, and if you can leverage those electronic health records, it's going to enable the consumer to make those correct decisions. So the answer is yes, we would be open to that, but we wouldn't be interested in a solution that's focused on electronic health records or payer providers.
Okay. As a follow-up question to that, topics 1 and 2, do they have to meet HIPAA requirements for data protection?
Is that for us? Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So privacy and HIPAA are of utmost importance, and so anything that we do that deals with data, I mean, we have a whole bunch of regulations that we need to be hesitant and be wary about. So we don't want to do anything that's going to break the HIPAA guidelines or any sort of privacy guidelines.
Okay. Our next question. For topic 3, will GSK help collaborators develop excipient formulations, a current area of struggle?
So Rob, I'll take this one too. So GSK has a whole bunch of capabilities in formulation. So we have a formulation lab here in Warren. There's one in GSK House in the UK. We have a whole entire group that's working on this in India in drug delivery. And we have access to all the pharma resources. And so what I'd say is if someone has a really good idea, I mean, one thing, Rob, maybe you can speak to a little bit about, that we've engaged with entrepreneurs or companies in development collaborations, right? So it'd be a co-development opportunity where we would work together to help move some opportunities forward. And I don't know, Rob, if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I would just tell innovators not to worry too much about some of the details about how the formulation will work. I mean, clearly we have pretty significant capabilities. We have pilot plants even here in our location in Warren, New Jersey. And so I think that the formulation itself and the ability to find unique, creative ingredients and formulations is really ultimately what we're looking for. So and yes, of course, we would be in a position to be able to collaborate. If there are some capabilities if there is a company, for example, that does want to develop and doesn't have the capabilities, we certainly can work together with them. It's an individual. We can also provide them some resources and even some internal capabilities to work with some of their process. So I think there's a tremendous amount of flexibility in doing various things.
And I think that's one of the real values for working with GSK is that we have tons of experience, lots of capabilities, and we're really have this ability to tap into all these different capabilities across all of our 3 big companies, the 3 business units, to support entrepreneurs and innovators to move these innovations forward.
Robert, Ian, thank you both very much for that. Our next question, is GSK interested in regenerative medicine devices?
Do you have any more specifics on that question, or?
Unfortunately, I don't. For the individual who submitted that question, if you could, please submit some additional clarifying information. We'll move on to our next question, and we'll come back to that question in just a little bit. The next question is, for topic 3, can the Challenge Award be used to fund a small clinical trial to establish safety, stability, and palatability of the formulation?
Yeah, I mean, I think the use of funds are absolutely up for discussion. And, I think the idea is really to, the reward is to encourage the connection and the incentive for individuals to want to collaborate with us. Once we find a technology that we think does fit with our consumer unmet needs and we want to move forward, we would be putting together a whole plan. And that whole plan would have in it potentially proof of concepts, would have clinical trial discussions. To the extent it was an OTC. If it's not an OTC product, there would be also a bunch of different series, whether it's consumer insight discussions. All of those things would have to be laid out, and a plan would put in place. And certainly from a use of funds discussion, we can certainly talk about how these various funds could be used for that and for other things.
Okay, great. Stepping back to the previous question regarding regenerative medicine devices, the submitter has indicated that the focus possibly being on modular artificial livers. It's a portable device about the size of a 1-liter bottle, and can be, or could be an artificial pancreas. Would that fit within the scope of this challenge?
Yeah, and that's sort of why I wanted to have some more information on it. So regenerative medicines is actually a really exciting area. I know that we're actually looking at it for like even some of the skin health areas. There's some things on regenerative medicine and technologies that are not really for the consumer, and the ones that you're bringing up are more probably on the more surgical or RX side, where this would be more physician or hospital based treatments. So I would say we're really focused on these this idea of transforming the future of self-care and providing healthcare solutions that can be consumer based and consumer led. So the other ones that are more hospital or physician focused would not be part of this challenge.
Okay, great. And to the submitter who added the clarifying information, thank you very much for helping explain the question a little bit better. Moving on to our next question, and this kind of goes again to the divide between consumer usage versus physician usage. Would wound care be considered a component of skin health?
It would be, and wound, it's actually a really exciting area. It's one that we're currently not in as a company. That's a really exciting therapeutic area. There's a lot of really interesting work that's happening, around the world and in different academic institutions. So again, it's not one of our focus areas, our strategic focus areas, but I think that for the right opportunity, we would be interested in assessing it. I don't know, Rob, if you had any thoughts.
Yeah, no, and I think and to a certain extent, there are kind of the RX and CX versions of the wound healing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think we'd be for this group anyway, we would be focused mostly on the CX side of things. So to the extent you're talking about wound healing from I guess more of a CX version. So to the extent we're talking about just dryness or other potential ailments that could potentially or scar healing and things to that nature, certainly would be more interesting. If it's larger wound healing, more military based, or there may be other applications that would be more on the RX side. And we certainly can put you in contact with the right people, but for us, we'd be focused on the CX side of things.
Okay, and actually, before we move on to the next question, the submitter for this particular question added in some additional information, and perhaps this changes your answer a little bit. The wound care would consist of a proprietary topical therapeutic. Does that modify your interest in this particular approach?
Yeah, based off of that short description, I think that would be aligned with what we would want to look at.
I mean, the one thing, and this was brought up before, we're looking for these differentiating technologies, and there's a lot of, topical treatments that are available or that are being developed now. So again, I think it's a really great area. So if there's some differentiating technology that's going to improve outcomes or speed up, healing time, we'd definitely be interested in assessing that.
Okay, great. And again, for the individual who added in that additional information, thank you very much for that. Robert, Ian, you had touched on some of the capabilities that GSK has for assisting respondents. We have a question here regarding data privacy and HIPAA guidelines. Is that something that GSK could help with after submitting proposals?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because this is a rapidly evolving area, and I know there's a lot of regulations that are being put in place both in Europe and the U.S. And we do have whole teams that are looking at this and seeing how GSK can work in this area. I mean, especially when it comes to data and how you can share data across different countries, different regions. So yes, I think that we are building up our understanding. We have a whole regulatory, policy, legal groups that are evaluating this. So the answer is yes.
Great. Okay. For our next question, going to topic 3. Topic 3 mentions enhanced user experience as an attribute of a successful technology. Would you be able to give some examples of an enhanced user experience for some of the brands, some of the consumer health brands that are listed?
I can take that one. So if you think about one of the things that we spend a lot of time on is doing a lot of consumer research, and what we do is we do ethnographic research, these in-home visits, we do qualitative and quantitative assessments, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to understand the consumer journey. So what are all these different touch points throughout the day that the consumer is going to have that's going to lead them to one, either assessing that they're sick, how they get diagnosed, how they go about making decisions on their treatment options. And so now if you think about, what are all these different touch points that the consumer is going to have throughout the day with different technologies? So one of the things that we are really putting a lot of thought around is, how do you actually enable someone to make the right choices on, let's say, the treatment options? How do you ensure that they're going to be reminded that they need to take their medicine? How is that consumer going to be able to maintain and manage their health and give them this regular feedback and let them know when they're going to have to, let's say, go see the doctor if they're worsening, or maybe even stop, or maybe they shouldn't take a medicine. So it is this regular interaction that we want to have with the consumer. And again, it's this idea that we want to enable the consumer to be more accountable, and we're going to provide them with these tools and this regular feedback on their health.
Okay, staying with topic 3. If we have a technology that could be applicable, do we have to provide evidence that it works with your formulations?
Can you say that again? Sorry.
It's for topic 3. The question is asking whether or not they have to provide evidence that their technology works with your formulation. I think the question is basically saying if somebody has a technology that they believe would be suitable for topic 3, do they have to be able to prove that their technology works with your formulation when they respond, or is that something that could be developed later?
Yeah, no, I think, look, it's very infrequent that innovators will have worked through all the dynamics of our formulas. Well, first of all, our formulas are confidential. Those are not things, someone would not have access to those deep insights and the specifics of our formulations. So the reality is that it would be very rare for that to happen. So the answer is, I think, if to the extent there is some promising performance, and if it's in, for example, in the skin area, if there's some data that can be shown that shows some promising, whether it's proof of concept or some early clinical trials, and we would just have to figure out how to use those potential technologies and integrate into our formulas, and we would work with the collaborator to do that.
Okay. Our next question actually continues our trend on topic 3. Products like Theraflu have multiple active ingredients. Do we have to prove that our innovation doesn't negatively impact one ingredient while improving another?
Well, I guess it sort of answered the question similar to the last one. Again, the formulations themselves wouldn't be available. I think the idea would be that we would go through the process of testing all of things out. What would be true is, to the extent that were to become true through our assessments and our due diligence, then clearly that would be an issue for us, and probably we would not be able to move forward with the collaborator, because we are, our brands are really our cornerstone of our technologies and our strategies. So it is important that we keep our ingredients consistent. We think our active ingredients are really what sets us apart. So we would just have to go through the due diligence process and through the various trials to be able to prove that that new ingredients, to the extent it's novel, would work well with our existing products.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. We're coming up on the end of our time here. We still have time for a few more questions, and we have some here. For our attendees, if you have any questions for the GSK team, for Kevin from 9 Sigma, please feel free to enter your questions into the Q&A chat box. This is an excellent opportunity for you to submit your questions and get very prompt feedback. Like I said previously, if you don't have a question now but think you might later, I'll have some information on an upcoming slide about how you can get answers to those questions. With that in mind, we'll move on to our next question. Is GSK interested in ingestible technologies? For example, the Proteus compliance pill, but for a different usage case.
Yeah, so Proteus is actually a really interesting technology. I know that we've looked at it in the past for different areas. I would say yes. These types of ingestible technologies are going to probably be something that is going to become more and more regular, and especially for disease states that require tracking of someone's health on a regular basis. So I would say we'd be interested in assessing those technologies.
Okay, great. Our next question, again, areas of interest. Is GSK interested in personalized medicine or nutrition, for example, microbiome testing?
Yes, we are interested in the personalization in general is something that we are interested in. So whether that's microbiome and various different areas, to the extent there are some technologies that help us have better communication and interaction with our consumers, where we can provide feedback and adjustments. And again, when we think about, because some of the challenges obviously are more technologically based, to the extent we can have a conversation with our customers and provide feedback in a multi-directional way, that to us we view as very, very positive. The more we can personalize the experience, the better. So whether that's microbiome or other technological solutions, we would definitely be interested in anything that would help with personalization.
Okay, great. Our next question. I represent a company that makes sensors that can be incorporated into wearables. We may have products which would help your customers practice self-care, but our products have application in other spaces as well. What level of exclusivity are you seeking?
Yeah, that's an easy answer. We do this all the time. There are technologies that have applications in multiple different industries. That's very normal, and so we bifurcate those discussions, and we would get exclusivity only for the areas that we are interested in within the healthcare space. I mean, we would want to have it broad enough to make sure that we don't find ourselves in a situation where the application could be competing with us. But certainly, if there's an application that is useful in other parts that are non-competitive, we would just bifurcate that and separate it in the discussions.
Great. We have another question. Are you interested in products that can tap into platforms like Alexa or Google?
The short answer is yes. In fact, I think strategically, one of the things that GSK is doing is obviously looking at data sets across the entire industry, and some of the best data sets clearly are things like Alexa and other platforms. Data for us is a critical component of how we're going to communicate with our consumers. So to the extent there is a tap-in with Alexa or even other platforms like that, we absolutely would be interested.
Yeah, and GSK is actually investing in a lot of studies to look at how voice, how consumers can interact with these types of Alexa or the Google to really enable the consumer to reach the transformation of the self-care. So how they can actually enable them to make these better healthcare decisions.
Okay, great. We've got another question coming in right now. We're just getting some clarifying information, so bear with us for just a second. As I said previously, if you have questions outside of today's webinar, you can contact the 9 Sigma Provider Help Desk at phd@9sigma.com. Let us know that you're interested in the GSK Transforming the Future of Self-Care Challenge, and let us know what your questions are. If it's a process-related question, if it's a technical question, please feel free to submit those questions to the 9 Sigma Provider Help Desk outside of today's webinar, and we'll get you the information that you're looking for. With regard to the next question, the submitter is wondering whether or not consumers can use their own technology for monitoring their health. I'm assuming they mean technology that they currently own rather than something that they would need to purchase. Okay, yes, for topic one, very broadly, GSK is interested in any technology piece that would help consumers with self-care inside the home. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, great. For the submitter, if we have misunderstood your question, please let us know. We're approaching the end of our time today. As I said, if we have any questions outside of today's webinar, please let us know. We'll proceed to wrap up today's webinar. And as I said, we'll have some additional information for you in just a moment. So, for our attendees, what can you do today? First off, you can visit the GSK Transforming the Future of Self-Care Challenge page. You can see the URL on your screen there right now. Please keep in mind that is not a space in between GSK and CHAL. It is GSK_CHALL. The full URL, for those of you who are just listening, it's https://9sigma.co/GSK_CHALL, that's CHALL. While you're there, you can review the details of all three topics, information about what you should include in your response, what the key success criteria are, that sort of thing. Also, while you're there, you can register with 9sites. That is a key component to responding. If you're interested in responding, you'll need to register with 9sites in order to get access to the online response form. As I mentioned previously, if you need help, contact the 9 Sigma Provider Help Desk. The email address, as I've given out, is phd@9sigma.com. Likewise, you can reach out to us by phone. It's area code 216-283-3901. That phone number again is area code 216-283-3901. And last and certainly not least, very important date, the submission deadline. The deadline to submit your response online via 9sites is Thursday, January 31st, 2019 at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Please keep that 5 p.m. time in mind. That is a hard deadline. At 5 p.m., the online submission portal will close. You won't be able to complete or submit your response after that 5 p.m. deadline. With that in mind, we encourage interested parties to register with 9sites early. That'll get you the opportunity to look at the online response form. You can begin to work on your response. Please don't feel that you need to submit your response all in one go. The system will save your responses as you begin to enter them, so you can spend a couple of minutes working on it and then come back later and continue to work on it. When you're ready, go ahead and submit. We strongly advise you to submit well in advance of that 5 p.m. deadline, just so that you don't miss it. So, with that in mind, I will say thank you once again to Robert and Ian from GSK Consumer Health and Kevin from 9 Sigma. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time today. We appreciate you taking the time to tell our attendees about this interesting challenge. To our attendees, thank you for joining us. We look forward to your submissions, and everyone have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.